Okay. Second by
Ed.
Are there any questions on the secretary's reports? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes, passed. Next up is the treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Ricky, maybe. So moved.
Motion by Rick, second by John Carbone. Are there any questions or comments on the treasurer's report? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes, passed. That brings us to the committee reports, and audit is up first.
Out of the IDA operating account in January, we paid out $54,517.74.
Thank you, John. Is there anything from personnel or governance? No report for
The only
governance.
thing for governance is Rick and I talked, we're gonna try the governance committee and myself meet at least once a month prior to meetings to go over things, and we're gonna have a lot to go over. We've got the issues with our new street up on the hill is moving forward, so have a governance committee and I will talk to you guys. Probably, the day doesn't matter to me. It'll be up to when you guys are available. I'll make time. Okay, and you can check with either one of the girls. They have my schedule, so they'll be able to tell you when I can get in there. They do a lot better job than I do of keeping it.
Okay, so we just have the one report. Is there a motion to approve that report? Motion by John, second by Ed. Any questions on the audit reports? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes, passed. That brings us to the executive director report.
Okay, first thing we'll do is go over the audits, the draft audit. So if we can get the audit approved today, we can get it. We have plenty of time to get in the Paris report. I think you all remember Tom Zuber, the partner at MMB that handles our account. So Tom, come down.
Thank you.
Present the audit.
Great, thanks, Mike. So, and as you know, we're gonna have two reports that we're gonna walk through. I know you received the draft of the reports, take a look at. What I put together was just a little summary of some of the key items in the financial statements. As you know, the process, right, is looking at some of the older transactions. So, we appreciate the effort that the staff provides as we go through the process. And obviously there's been a little turnover this year, so we really appreciate the assistance the folks gave us. So, the financial statements really is that snapshot in time. And so on the first page, is the summarized balance sheet. And again, this is just kind of a snapshot. So if you take a picture at December 31st, here's your financial position. A few financial highlights on the bottom half of the page, just to kind of identify a couple of the highlights. And we did issue an unqualified opinion, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So that's the audit opinion you're looking for. Basically, that's the standard opinion that basically says the financial statements are free and material misstatement. But you can see, on the top half of the page, we do give you 2 years worth of information just to be able to discuss some of the key variances. But your total assets, $15.7 million. So obviously you've got dollars up in cash and cash equivalents. Your non-current assets of $3.1 million. Again, those are some of the different items relating to things like your lease receivable. Okay, so as you know, part of your organization, you own several properties and are renting some of those properties. So therefore, there's a calculation that has to be done to determine what are the future collections. But to offset that, there's a deferred inflow of resources down at the bottom. You actually see that 3.9 million. That primarily has to do with the lease receivable. So what we do is we set up a receivable, we set up a deferral, and then they get amortized over the life of the lease. Okay, so it's just an accounting transaction in terms of what you have in commitments. Okay, so that's really one of the larger pieces. Obviously, the capital assets. Okay, again, they relate to a lot of the different properties that you own. You can see they went up slightly from last year to this year. And he did receive some donated property this year. So that was about $395,000. So that increase is really net of the depreciation. So again, nothing too unusual. Again, with the non-current assets, just to kind of jump back there, you see that reduction. Again, that's just the offset of the payments relating to the leases. So again, you can see that deferred inflow down on the middle half of the page, that 3.9 million. And you can see on the right side, that variance, that $924,000 reduction. Again, that basically matches the reduction to the non-current asset. Again, directly related to the leases. Okay.
Does that continue to go down every year?
Generally, yes.
Because they pay.
Yeah.
And it's gonna go.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that'll change depending on if you enter into, let's say, a new lease, right? Or if you modify a lease, that could change that calculation. Okay. But again, just to kind of, the idea really is it's really a paper transaction, right? You're collecting the annual revenue on those leases, but we just have to do this calculation to say, here's kind of what you have on the books. Okay. But again, that can change.
Explain gas and things like that. We have to record things that private doesn't have to. And actually they do it because it would take me 6 years just to understand it. And it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So our reporting to them makes numbers. They're not like a private business where I made this much, I paid out this much, and here's what I got.
Yeah.
And you can just explain.
Yeah, so the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, so GASB, they really set the standards for these types of organizations, say these are the things that you have to include in your financial report, right? And so we have to look at things that may not be part of your everyday operation, okay? They may be cash type transactions, but we have to look at it and say, how does it impact the authority over the long term? Okay, so the leases are a good example of that. So we have to look at the different contracts you have in place, and we have to do some projections. Again, you have software that you utilize for that. So really the information is provided by you. We put it into this software, and then it comes out and says, here's what your liabilities are. Okay, there's other areas in the financial statements. So the capital assets, right? We have to capitalize those. So again, that's your capital assets is $7.9 million, net of your depreciation, right? So again, that's really a paper transaction, right? When we're depreciating those fixed assets that you have. Another area really in the middle half of the page really is when we have to look at your long-term obligations, okay? So again, you see non-current liabilities and again, some of those deferred inflows, but primarily one of the areas in there that we have to account for is future health insurance, right? So if you've committed and you have committed to pay for health insurance for some retirees, there's a calculation that you have to do. And then again, that has to be on your book. So even though you're only paying out on an annual basis a certain cost, we have to attempt to measure that based on certain calculations. And again, that gets blended into your financial statements. So those are some of the examples of things that have to be blended into the financial statements that you may not see on an everyday basis. Okay. So those are some of the key things there. Again, you're doing a nice job in terms of monitoring those actual things that you see every day, things like your receivables, your pilot receivables, your operating receivables. And again, really there's nothing too unusual when you're looking at those transactions. And, the bottom half of the page really ends up being that net position. And again, we try and break that net position out between those investment and capital asset items. So that's $7.6 million. Again, that's really all of your capital assets, net of any liabilities and depreciation, okay? But we break that out separately because you look at it and you think, well, we have $11 million in assets, right? Well, a significant portion of those really aren't available to spend, right? They're tied up in buildings, et cetera. So we really focus on that unrestricted number, that $3.5 million, okay? And you see that did go up from last year to this year. Again, you've had some nice transactions during the year in terms of the different types of programs that you're doing, especially on the rental side. Okay, so just to be aware of that. So again, overall, very positive financial results with about a $377,000 overall increase in your net position. But then primarily, you look at that unrestricted category, right? The investment in capital assets went up $231,000. 395 was related to the building, the donated building. And then you have to net the depreciation against that or any other debt. Okay. So that's why you see that only going up 231,000. Okay. So that's kind of that snapshot. Any questions on any of the specific numbers on that snapshot? Again, there's just some highlights down at the bottom half of the page. Again, we look at the revenue and expense on the second page. This is just a summarized version. So we just kind of combine all your operating revenues and your operating expenses. Really, the operating revenues are primarily your rental income. Okay. You also see some one-time dollars coming in there relating to some of the all-sum dollars that you've had sitting on your balance sheet for the past couple of years. And really that's something that you brought in this year. So about $125,000 of that. So your rental is down slightly this year when you just look at rental only, but you did have one rental agreement end during the year. Okay, so that's why you see that minor reduction there. Your overall expenditure is $1.1 million. Again, one of the reasons you see that change and that increase in expenditures is one of those liabilities I was talking about, specifically relating to the health insurance. Okay. And anytime that changes, that can impact that P&L, okay, on the operating expenses. But on the bottom half of the page, you can see some of the major components of your operating sets, operating dollars. So your salary and benefits, about $208,000 there, pretty consistent with last year. Your depreciation, again, $477,000. It's up a little bit from last year. Depreciation and amortization, again, primarily because you have some new things coming on that are being depreciated and or amortized. Your insurance, again, down a little bit, primarily because of some of the adjustments relating to OPEB. Your outside services. So those are some of the arrangements you make on kind of doing some of the different projects that you have around there. One of the bigger pieces of that related to the utility poles and the Main Street project. Okay, so again, that's why you see that bump up there. I think that was around $114,000, $112,000. Okay, so it's a primarily major increase there. So again, from an operating standpoint, you're doing a nice job. You can see again, overall, your net position went up a little over $300,000. Again, primarily you see that contributed capital there, that 395. So those are the dollars coming in relating to that donated property. Okay, and you see some of those grant dollars from the prior year. If you recall, you've completed that major project relating to the park. I always pronounce it wrong, so I won't try and Shaman Park. So again, that you see some of those grant dollars that flowed through the organization to support that project last year. And again, that project is completed. You're still waiting on some dollars to come in from the federal government. Again, I'm sure the shutdown didn't really help the process along much, but again, the closeout can be a challenging process with the federal government on a regular basis. So I think I'm sure Mike can attest to.
Yeah.
So again, very nice financial results relating to this program. We also have a management letter that really just talks about some enhancements to your internal controls, checks and balances. Really just two items that we talked about last year, primarily related to the bidding process. So just, how you're documenting the items that you're going out and bid compliance. And then the other one relating to just the leases and just making sure you've got some good, clear documentation relating to all of the different leases.
With signatures. With signatures.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the IDA. Okay, so that's the major corporation and authority component that we have down here. Do you have any questions on that?
Yes, with the 395 for that building, is that based off the assessment that you come up with that
No,
number, or is that
actually,
what we did?
The assessment was more like 450. So I could either take the assessment or what it was listed at.
Oh, okay.
I took the listing because it listed at 395.
Gotcha.
I thought 450 was a little high.
Yeah.
And yet frankly, if I could have got away with it, it would have went on our books as zero because it was given. It isn't like we bought it. It is an asset and it is ours.
Does have to be, does have to
I
There's value to it.
be, yeah.
I
absolutely.
had MMB look at it. They said, no, it's got to have a number. So we put it in.
How long do we depreciate a building off?
Yeah. Well, it depends on building needs and things, but generally it's gonna be between 20 and 30 years, just depending on the structure.
I think it's that long, yes.
Those, when the government gives you that, every once in a while they give you a gift, they say you can depreciate more this year. Is that an ongoing thing or is that just?
Well,
Purpose.
so it really doesn't impact you folks because you don't pay taxes, right? So that, the bonus depreciation and stuff like that, that's more on an individual, an organization basis. You folks really don't have any tax liability. So this is purely this GASB requirement to say you have to do certain things relating to those things. So really you put it on the books, you see a donated asset, but then the other side of it, right? So you see a revenue of 395, the other side of it is we put it on the books, right? As a building, and then it starts getting depreciated. So you see that expense get amortized in a period of time, right? Sometimes you have other types of donated items, like that where it's just a revenue and expense, right? If someone donated, something that was not as large, it'd be like you purchased it, so you'd record a revenue and an expense. So that's generally the way you do that. But yeah, so again, I think that's always the challenge. But yeah, fair market value is what you generally record those on. So generally, when you're getting something like that, you have to base it on the list price. Okay. Any other questions on that program?
Any other questions on the IDA audit? Is there a motion? Do we want to accept it today?
It'd be great if we.
Is there a motion to
Make a
accept
motion.
and approve the audit? Motion by Ed, second by John. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Aye. All ayes, passed.
So you don't, I just want to, so Tom doesn't have to stay here for both meetings. You can go forward and do the corporation. We wouldn't be able to approve that till we have a corporation meeting. We present that.
Just for experience, we can go over it now.
Yeah, so the very last page of the handout is the Industrial Development Corporation. Okay, so again, you should receive those draft copies. Again, just to try and pull out the information that summarizes kind of the key items. And again, the Industrial Development Corporations, they were created for specific purposes several years ago. So there's really limited opportunities to generate revenues with these types of organizations, right? When COVID happened, there was some opportunity to utilize some of these, the different dollars that you had for some different loan programs to support some of the businesses. So that's one of the areas where the organization kind of utilized how the structure in order to help benefit some of the local businesses. Again, that's the primary activity in this organization, really ends up being those loans that you folks made to certain organizations within the area and loaning those out and collecting dollars back against those organizations. So again, unqualified opinion, no material weaknesses. So again, that's what you're looking for in the opinion. Again, when you take a look at that snapshot, a little over $300,000 in terms of net position, right? $274,000 is cash, $28,000 relates to receivables. We do have a small, I'll call it an allowance against, potential loans that won't be repaid. So, but you did collect about $5,000 in loans during the year, and you have that allowance of about $8,000 of offsetting the receivables. Okay. Again, overall, the net position went down, again, primarily because you're not generating really any other revenue besides the interest you're earning on those loans. Okay, so again, nothing else is really too unusual in here. The different expenditures, you've got certain projects that you do, as well as some of the annual meetings and stuff that this organization supports. So again, nothing too unusual, but just understanding that the position will continue to go down from one year to the next, and if there's not new revenue opportunities. Okay.
How do we?
I don't know. One thing I'm gonna have, actually, the corporation was formed to do things the IDA couldn't do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have Harris Beach actually write me an opinion paper on here is the goal, or here is what the corporation can do that the IDA can't, so we know exactly what it is. The other thing is, if we wanted to continue to fund it or increase cash in the thing, how we can do it, and I don't know that. Maybe
It'd be interesting to go back in time and predates most of us, but to see how it was originally funded.
Yeah. There was a grant of 250,000.
Yeah.
That was some of the main original funding, yeah.
I think that was the funding for the IDA. I don't know the corporation.
Somehow they were able to transfer that. I remember Griff
But
talking about
it
that.
could have been that there was that the government set up a loan program, and that's how you got money in there to cover those loans during COVID. I don't know that.
This was related to the depot.
Yeah.
When we were trying to restore or,
So depot money went into the corporation.
well, and we got permission to move that over
It was
to.
federal money, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And
federal
then
money.
we got the permission to move it in to the IDC. And then we utilized it for the loans that we offered to the businesses.
Prior to that, it was kind of just sitting there.
It was $250.
Some
It
small,
was $250. So most of this cash that you're seeing is from that.
What I want though is I want the opinion from the attorney. Here's what you can do this, here's what you can't.
Yeah,
Because frankly,
I mean, just as an initial matter, LDCs are non-for-profit corporations, so that makes them subject to the non-profit corporation law instead of the general municipal law, which the IDA is subject to. That increases, I'll say, the flexibility to do certain things, which we can get into detail about. And also, since the LDC is so intertwined with the IDA, it makes it a public authority. So it is still subject to the requirements of the public authorities law. So think procurement, stuff of that nature, but it can loan money, it can make grants, it can receive grants, it can hold properties. I'm seeing here, it doesn't look like the IDC is holding any type of property. So that's one thing that we could think of in the future as a way to increase revenues, hold the properties that the IDA holds that maybe aren't active projects, but are in development phases. The LDC is not able to grant real property tax abatements, but they can do mortgage recording tax exemptions. They could do bonding if you wanted to. But yeah, we could talk about more in detail, and we're happy to prepare an opinion on that, but there definitely is more flexibility.
maybe some things we could utilize that for that we aren't thinking about right now. So I think it's a good idea to get an opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I think
that
that,
open up more things that we can do as an IDA that we can't do.
Yeah, if I recall, one of the purposes, and Devin, correct me if I'm wrong, with these public authorities, with the IDCs, LDCs, there were certain types of bonds that they could issue that IDAs couldn't for a period of time now, so for not-for-profit corporations, for example, those were some of the examples of some of the other public authorities, EDCs and things of that nature that we work with. That's what they were there for and created. And I think, and this is where I'm gray, the law changed where then IDAs could do it. So they're kind of the purpose of them went away.
Some of the main purpose, yeah.
So because what IDAs couldn't do in the past, they could now do, but again, that's where I'm a little gray.
yeah, the bonding aspect, I'll start by saying I am not super experienced in the bonding worlds, but I do think it is pretty on par with the IDA level of bonding. Again, the big difference is just the increased flexibility due to the non-subjects of the general municipal law, the investment policies that are in the general municipal law. Strict investments they're slightly changed when you look at an LDC. Board members, stuff of that nature. Again, subject to public authorities law still, so you'd still have to undertake the typical procurement practices. You'd need those standard policies, but the content of the policies can be different than what you see in the IDA policy. So where you have your investment policy, let's say for the IDA that limits you to certain types of securities per the general municipal law, you still need to limit yourself to certain types of securities, but it's not as stringent, and I'd say it's not as stringent as the requirements of general municipal law. So that's one huge benefit, I'd say. And then, yeah, I'd say that's it for now, but we could definitely talk more in depth about
think
it.
Why I ask is especially our new street up there. We
Yeah.
we extended that Hornell Street this year.
Mhm.
We actually did it for the city. The
Oh,
city
yeah.
owns it. We don't. We had some difficulty figuring out how to record it because we spent 85 grand to extend the city street, but it had to do with the car wash. It had to happen or the car wash couldn't open.
Yeah.
So, and we're gonna do the same thing with the new street. Once we finish it, we will donate the land. We'll also donate the street. And all I'm trying to do is figure out the best way to do it legally, accounting.
Yeah.
And because you're taking $1 million off our books and it just looks like an expense. It's truly not. So we did a project for the betterment of the city, but we're not maintaining a street. It's going to be a city street and the city, it's theirs.
I mean, you can if you want.
No, we don't. We don't.
Yeah, we see typically a lot of IDAs that have LDCs will do projects like that through their LDC versus the IDA, and they'll have the LDC hold title to that property until it's eventually developed, dedicated, or sold off privately.
But we'll be transferring the property from the guy that has the car wash now. He's given us a strip, and there's actually a little no cash changes hands, but our fee, have forgiven the fee is reciprocation for the land. That might be the project we do it because I don't want to put $1 million expense on our books. You know, and we tried to, Melissa and I, we couldn't figure out the 84,000 other just expense in it, but it could be difficult to explain.
Yeah.
And it's really not, but it is.
Mhm.
So if we could run it through the IDC, and we used to use in the county, we use the LDC all the time.
Mhm.
So we did use it a lot more than we do.
It just depends on how their structure is set up and the types of
Yeah.
programs that you're using and what you're doing in the IDA. So, but certainly it's something we can get together and talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, we could prepare an opinion on that, and then I'll also take a look at the certificate of incorporation and the bylaws of the LDC to confirm we want to change any provisions in there to make it more
Once we get the
active.
opinion, I'll forward it to you. So we all know what we did and what we said. In the future, we will know how to record these because again, I'd rather show it as a donation or something. I hate to just straight expense it to outside services. Frankly, it's not what it was.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not, I have to just go back and look and where you have some challenges would be the types of exemptions that the LDC can do versus
Okay.
the IDA.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, I said the LDC can't grant real property tax abatements, but by being a non-for-profit corporation and holding the property for a purpose that's consistent with it, it would still be exempt from real property taxes. We just file a separate form. And as long as the purpose of the LDC is in line with the purposes of the LDC
Yeah.
holding the property, then it wouldn't be a problem getting that granted.
Okay.
And then this is an organization that you do file a tax return for. You do have to file the 990 for this particular organization because of the structure. So it's the only uniqueness that's a little bit more than with what the IDA has to do.
Great.
Okay. Rest of the executive report, or do we?
Well, we have to go through the IDC, right? Oh,
We're going to have to approve it, and we have to approve it in the IDC meeting.
Tom, you already went through the IDC. Do we have questions?
Yeah.
Anything on it?
Yeah, so that's the summary.
It's right on your thing.
Yeah, it was on the last page of the PowerPoint was the IDC information I just walked you through. So,
Yeah, we'll vote on that in the next
Well, we
meeting.
all got it. You can
Good to
stay
go.
till the
Thank
end
you.
If you want, but I didn't.
it's really up to you, but but I don't mind having that. So I don't.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Okay, finish my report. As I'm sure you're all aware of 117 Main. That was gonna develop it is cited in that too. There is a lot of interest in that building. We've got realtors that have interest in listing it. We have a company downtown right now that has mentioned us about they'd like to go in there. I don't think the building will stand empty very long. We've had people inquire about leases. We've had people inquire about buying it. And my preference is we keep it and lease it out, do not sell it. It gives us, it's two things. It gives us some long-term income. I don't believe we would get what it's worth. It's a good building and we can control how it's maintained. It won't be empty.
So there's interest, but I think we need to ask the question, what is in the best interest of the city and the downtown? You know, what would we like to see there? I think, obviously, first and foremost, a restaurant has been on our minds. And I still think that there is a strong need for some fine dining on Main Street. We do have some very nice restaurants, but not really along Main Street other than just some takeout places really. I think we should.
Yeah, there is things we have to do to it right now.
Or any type of REIT, I mean.
We have to do the heating system's got to be replaced. I got it going 3 or 4 times last year and the year before, but it's rough. And for whatever reason, it was piped through the ceiling. All the soot and stuff fell back in it. I clean it out, I shake it out, but I don't believe, and I'm having it looked at, and then we're going to do a RF or get quotes to fix the thing and replace it. The only reason we held off is because if it was the restaurant, it could have been a different type of heating system, but that's got to be done. We won't have to, at least at this point, we won't have to cut into the tunnels wall. But we'll look at what comes up, what realtors have, and I'll bring it back to where I agree with John. It's important that you control what it's used for, I think. And we certainly don't want to sell it off and have it sit empty like other buildings do.
Mm.
There is a market for buildings downtown. So sometimes I wonder why any of these buildings sit empty. They
Mostly disrepair, disrepair.
but I'm always wondering why the owners think it's a good idea, unless it's a tax. I don't know why.
Well, I think, every situation is unique into itself, but
No doubt.
historically, there's been a collection of owners that, for one reason or another, maybe it's where they are in life, age-wise, they simply don't want to invest anymore in their property. And that is, we've seen that play out time and time again with, some of the larger buildings downtown. The McHenry Jewelers building, perfect example of someone who
Pretty fine building,
does
yeah.
not want to do anything with it. I mean, a person's been approached,
Yeah.
For many times over many years. There's others on the other side of the street that, just age and haven't really wanted to invest. And
There's also the unknown of what it's going to do to the assessment if you do something major to the building. Look at the tax increases right now going through. So I think there's a lot of fear with that.
In fairness, there hasn't been a tax increase. It's just the
Oh, yeah. The
Valuation.
assessment increase, I'm sorry. But I think that's probably in everyone's mind to some extent a little bit.
All the more reason to engage the IDI.
But I mean, that line of thought can be true at any time in any decade, right?
It's gonna
Oh, yeah.
happen, and
Definitely.
revals
So
are.
there's progress,
So many years.
progress in other communities that we see. So I think it's the people that own the properties simply haven't had either the desire or the will to do these projects. We've had through the city, we've had several opportunities through DRI and, especially, John and Ed, you were involved in that, from the very beginning. When the letters went out, when we did the outreach, you'd be surprised, and you're talking about, large sums of money that, would go out to the private side. You'd be surprised how many building owners downtown just had no interest at all. I mean, really a once in a generation, once in a lifetime opportunity to do a substantial impactful project, and a lot of them just
Didn't even apply or look into it.
not interested, not interested.
Dollars and cents normally. I mean, any of the business owners that I work with and work around, it always comes down to that funding, the funding thing. I don't know what the dollar figures would be, whether it be 30,000 or 50,000 or 75,000 or 100,000. Most of them just aren't looking at like, okay, yeah, I can front that, wait it out, and then come back. And it was weird because a lot of them tried to get funding from banks, and then it was complicating factors. And yeah, it shortchanged some of it. It is unfortunate because there was a lot of money to be had there, and
Well,
I
that would
felt
be
that it was super important. Yeah.
one thing that the IDC could help out with down the road. With grants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
To look into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that downtown vacancy is not limited to the city. See it across the state. It's kind of a phenomenon that's happened the past, I'd say 15 years, so.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it's funny when you're talking about it, like if you look at Penn Yan in comparison, Penn Yan, I think, is ahead of us. Bath is behind us. And so you look across even our Clark County and adjoining counties, it is region wide, but there are people that are able to overcome it and continue to grow and continue to keep things vibrant. And, Penn Yan has the luck of being close to the lake, and they have that summer economy where people,
Sure.
They have the
pay back
traffic.
anything. Yeah. And they've got that. So, there's things there that affect it, but I thought it was a great program. And yeah.
Yeah, there's been others, Restore Main Street program, which we've applied for and we'll apply for again. But, you have to have willing partners and participants in these programs, because you could be awarded a Main Street grant, but, I'll just use the three of you, if John, Ed, and Rick aren't participating in it and we don't have anyone on the private side to partner with, then it's no good.
Right. Yeah. Nothing happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what the concentration of ownership is, if there's just a few individuals that own a lot of the properties.
It's pretty
spread out.
It's pretty-
There's a lot of out of town owners. And that's one of the things.
That's-
Yeah.
It's one of the things that HPG, I think, really drilled down on a number of years ago, that there is a lot of non-participation from out of town owners. And that's a tricky thing. They're paying their taxes,
Yeah.
which is good. But as far as maintaining the property or trying to upgrade the property, that is low. I don't know what the mixture is, but there's a significant amount that are out of town. Yeah. So tricky.
I mean, would it be worth reaching out to some of the owners and maybe the IDA act as an agent if they want to try to
Sell it.
lease or
something
sell
like
it,
that.
or, try to bring
Maybe-
interest to them? Because obviously they're not taking the incentive to do it on their own.
And spoon feed the info.
Certainly, try to do more outreach, but, I'll just go back to the meeting we had at the main place recently.
There
The
was
city planner.
three business owners there.
City planner sent out a survey to all the downtown businesses, a year or so ago. Got 3 responses. 3.
I responded late, but the downtown, the meeting that the county had, there were 3 business owners there.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And so people would say timing wise. So of course I'm an advocate for the business communities. I'm in the business community. So I know that the other owners would be like, they're working 60, 70 hours a week as it is. And to try to shoehorn that in, right, was interesting. But, I sat through the meeting, and there are on the county side and the city side, all across the county, there are people that are willing to help. It's a tricky mixed bag to try to get there. I think maybe your idea about spoon feeding the information, spoon feeding the stuff and almost facilitating it might work. It's worth a try, but there's a lot of rejection there.
Yeah, again, I go back to saying, if you have an empty building, it doesn't generate any revenue.
Yeah.
There's got to be a city where I don't care if it does.
Mhm.
Because it's sitting there, they're maintaining it, they're paying and they're making not a dime off it.
Yeah.
In Hornell, and I think Michelle works and hears this up, there is a need for storefronts downtown. They're there, but it doesn't seem like they have any interest in making that rentable or make that space revenue generating. I can't understand it. I would not want to pay expenses on a building and bring nothing in when it just sits. It makes no sense.
And that's, and I don't mean to, get up on the soapbox today, but that's been one of my biggest frustrations over the last 8 years being in office is just the lack of participation with some of the building owners. And I keep going back to the old Board of Ed post office building that sat there empty for 30 years. And I mean, literally
It's
nothing.
a funny thing. I don't,
We approached them during DRI. Their interest was lukewarm to begin with. And we basically tried to construct a project for them, but they weren't, they were just like, oh,
what are the
okay.
taxes? What are the taxes on that building?
I'd have to look it up.
They gotta be,
Maybe
they gotta be,
do
they
their
gotta be
taxes.
$4 or $5 grand a year, probably minimum, maybe
I'd
higher.
rather see them, donate the building to the IDA to, do a project or sell it to someone who's going to,
Do something and
Put some money
couple
into
the
it.
two together, yeah.
especially being, where it is in the heart of the downtown, but the proximity to the new park. I mean, there's a lot of things, that could be utilized for, and it's just sits there empty.
I think
One thing you noticed at the county meeting, the business owners sitting there down in that, and even Ricky, the ones your buildings are maintained. The people that do it are the ones that, Mike Davison knows everything. His buildings are maintained. Ricky's, Ed's, your buildings, they're all made, that's the people that go to the meetings, the ones that really, I spend the money on my buildings and they're maintained well. Again, as a businessman, it's hard for me to understand why I'm paying expenses on this. I could generate revenue to at least cover the expenses, put money, and they don't do it. So it's hard for me unless they're using it as a tax write-off and it means nothing to them. But frankly, you don't write off 100% of the value. I don't understand it. So maybe that's a good idea. Just talk to them and see if you can get them excited. I don't know.
I think if we could get a hold of all the names of the owners and start to reach out, see what we can.
We could even get some of the board members together and do like just robocall people, get the contact information, call them up, say, we're IDA members, board members. We're reaching out because we're trying to revitalize the community over the next X number of years. And so we want to see
I think
what are your interest level? You want to sell the thing? You want to donate the thing? You want to have us help you try to figure out how to get some facade grants? And, is there any interest on your side? And then if you call 20 of them and you get 4 of them to react, that's better than none, and move on that. Maybe
step one is define a bullet point list of the things we can do to offer first.
Right.
We're gonna know.
Be a good idea, yeah.
But if you help them through it and you're actually doing the legwork for them, they may do it. Some of them may just say, yeah, it's not worth my time and I have the money, what do I care? But I would care. I couldn't own an asset that cost me to operate it with expenses tagged to it without trying at all to get any revenue to at least offset the cost. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't own it. So I guess we got to try to figure it out. But Rick's got a good point. We've got to figure out what the IDC can do. It's pretty straightforward what the IDA can do. The IDC can do other things. And I don't understand myself. I do know that in the county, we use the LDC a lot more than we use the corporation here, a lot more. So we've got to figure that one out. But the other thing that, when I talked to Sean and Lizzie and I are going to talk, we've got to be, the state are being a lot more stringent on what you can do and what you can't, and sometimes you kind of skirt the issue and maybe run the gray area. The gray area now is being looked at a lot more. So we've got to make sure when we do something, we do it the right way, because sooner or later we will have state auditors here, and which we should. And I don't have an issue with it, but I don't want any problems when we get there. I don't.
Yeah, there's definitely increased, I'd say.
Scrutiny, yeah.
Scrutiny is the best word to put it in IDAs specifically. So it's good to make sure that we're extremely compliant with our
And
projects.
Sean has said many times, well,
Yeah.
why don't we run this through the IDC? Well, okay, tell me how and why, and that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah, because they have a lot more flexibility. They still, again, could be audited in the same way. And usually when there is an audit, they are audited in conjunction with each other because of the interrelatedness of them. But again, there's much more flexibility. So yeah, getting the IDC more active, I think, is a great idea. And having them meet every month. You could do a joint meeting, doesn't have to be separate too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. 430 Cannon Steel Street, that's the building that the hospital donated to us, which is a great thing. We did find out, we didn't know that little runway that gets you to the back. That used to be a city street, or it went, I think way back when 36 went through, it actually was with a through lane or whatever.
I connected them.
Yeah. So the IDA, when 36 got, and not the IDA, but when 36 was made, the city actually transferred that over to St. James. And then St. James, I believe, and Lizzie was involved and you were involved. Somehow it went from St. James, the city, back to St. or whatever. And it was considered, and I would imagine once it was cut off, the city said, we don't want to maintain this. And I don't blame them. It wasn't a through nothing. It was of no good to the city. So when we closed the thing, that was not part of the building. St. James says, yeah, do your thing, and John's working on it. You can have it, but we've now got to go through the process. And did Steve get you a survey on just that piece?
No, I
A
don't have it.
description. So he's working. I think he's working on it, isn't he, Aaron?
He had sent over the old drawing
Yeah,
that I
okay.
sent you.
Yeah.
So we need a description of that. I've talked to the hospital.
So they're good with, because I never heard back from their attorney.
Yeah.
So,
They're
because that was
good.
one of the things I was going to recommend is because I can't deal with the hospital
I've
directly
talked-
because they have an attorney.
Talked to both of them. They
Yeah.
have, it was just an oversight.
Right.
So we've got to get it because and I'm sure they don't care if we ride down the driveway, but right to this point, we have no vehicle access downstairs. So we've got to get it.
Yeah.
But I talked to Wendy and
Okay.
and she said it'll be no issue.
So the hospital currently is titled to that?
Yes.
It was on a separate,
It
it wasn't part of the building,
Got it.
you know.
It's a separate
Yeah,
parcel
something
behind
else that
it.
nobody knew and then Steve
No,
knows.
aha, moments. Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely keep us in the loop on that. So
Is it a parcel or a right way?
I think it's
Parcel, I think, yeah.
Separate parcel.
I think so, yeah.
That's interesting, yeah. Just one of those things, with donated property, you kind of like, I don't know if it goes under the scrutiny is if you paid, $500,000 for it, the scrutiny level's way up. When it's donated, it's like, all right, everything looks like it's in order.
Yeah.
A little trickier,
So we've got to fix that. There's a lot of interest in that building. We still have somebody looking at a long-term lease. There's 2 sites. They could go to Corning, they could be here. I know the person that's already here wants to stay in Hornell, so I'm confident, but I've got other interest in that too. Even somebody called me and asked me if we'd be interested in selling it. I would not do that. It's a good building for us, and the hospital gave it to us too for the betterment of Hornell. If we turn around and sell it, it wouldn't be the right thing to do, and I don't think it's the right thing to do for us anyway around. I think we're gonna, it's gonna be a good building. It's gonna satisfy a need here. And it's got 11,000 square feet. It's a lot bigger than you think it is, and it's in good shape. So I'm very confident we're gonna do good things with that building. I would like to do the 10-year lease, but we shall see. We put in an ARC grant for the Shauna Road up there, street up there. We scored very high on the grant. I'm confident we will get it. The grant limit was only 250. I wish it'd been more, but that's all we could apply for. I'm looking at other.
250?
Yeah, 250. And that's the max we could get. The only grant that scored better than us was the municipality sewer agreement. They scored better, but we scored well. They did a great job. So I'm confident we're going to make something up. We're going to get some funding, and we're looking at others. I do have our consulting engineer has written the request for proposal, so we can send out at any time. I fortunately didn't review it when I was gone. I couldn't get the thing up, Ed just got it printed. He's a good man. We don't have to go.
When he's sleeping.
So that's not true. He does.
When he's sleeping, yeah.
But we got that, so we're good to go forward with that. Then we can send it out for proposal. White House Road, Biscarroll, Steve Hubertus is gonna meet with, I talked to Bill Baker, from Gray Manufacturing the other day. Bill, representative, and Biscarroll's representative, we're gonna meet with Steve Hubertus down there to lay out the right of ways. That'll be the last thing. One of our contingency was that they agreed to a right of way agreement. The agreement, all they've got to do is put it on a piece of paper and say, you're getting this much, I'm getting, they're both given a right of way to property. It'll satisfy both their needs and they both can operate, but there's a tentative closing for the Scarl in March. They have to satisfy this first before we can close.
Have you found the abstract yet? Because I'm saying.
No, we're looking.
Okay,
That has got to be cut out of the big contract, Conrail abstract.
probably, yes. No abstracts, but.
Yeah. I have, we did, and I've looked 3 or 4 times, but the problem, and I'll discuss this with you, because this isn't going to go away. Anytime one of them things changes hands, everything was done on. Well, the second guy coming, just like Gray said, I'm not buying it on that.
Right.
And then, frankly, when he did buy it, there was all these liens, which none of them, they all were satisfied. We got them all off. It took a judge to get rid of the one. It's not going to be any different because I think everything down there was sold on a quick claim. So I can see the same liens on everybody on that old strip.
Right.
Now, they agreed to take it that way. Bill Baker he would not, and I don't blame him. I really don't. But we've got to find that or do something. But I'll be honest with you, I have not a clue. I've looked through this place 10 times.
Okay.
Don't know where it is. And then the pieces would be cut out of there, I'm sure.
Yeah, so Steve will be able, when he does a survey, he'll have the deed information. He'll be able to
Yeah.
find that on what it's coming out of.
Yeah.
And then once he has that, at the very least, if we need to get a new abstract, then you just have Steve give.
Yeah, I
give you
think,
that when
I
he
think
finds it.
Steve, he's surveyed a couple of them.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got the.
So we know what it is, so that
information
they can
we
make an
need right
abstract off of that.
Yeah.
Off
now. Do
of
we
that.
do it parcel by parcel or the whole thing? Do we recreate the whole? I think that would be expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would think of that part, whatever that deed, because that's usually what we do when people come in, if they're selling a house or something and they don't have their
Yeah.
abstract, we just get a copy of their deed. The abstract, they search this property, you know what I mean?
But it's like when Gray come back to us, well, wait a minute, you sold it to me with all these liens. Well, that's what happened. I need your
Yeah.
tape. It's like buying a used car. That's what I told him. But the point was, well, this was supposed to be settled after the fact. We did the claim deed to get it done. It was never settled. It was a problem. So I think the issue will be the same. And although it's not really our headache, it's going to be the same as Gray's. And Gray, they were very good about it. Penny, no issues at all, but it's something that should have taken 2 weeks. A cash sale took 4 months. And it shouldn't have.
And it could take a while, if we, especially if we get a new abstract, it may be a while before we get that back, so the March closing, may be possible.
And I don't know, I don't know if they would close on it quick. I remember when I was at the other company, we bought the property, we bought over on William Cage. We would not.
Right. Especially if you're buying it.
Yeah.
So if it's given, like we've done, with the St. James,
That's the,
just get the quick claim and everything like that, because you're not spending money. And then we did the search afterwards and make the title and whatnot. But if you're buying property, you don't want to buy it and then it's yours and then you find
but
out.
I think
Found out you don't know the parking lot.
for the life of me, I can't see that. I don't know. And it would be huge, but we've looked and looked. I don't know. It's not in this building.
Okay.
So I have no idea. That'll probably be the way we have to attack everyone. Okay. let's see. West Street. Steve is Scott's making great progress on that. There was one issue. The parcel that we got from Jameson sits in Cornellsville. we have to put a certain amount of properties there to apply for this grant. The way with what Hornellsville owned, and it's in their thing, it reduces how many houses we can put up there. I have talked to the mayor. The mayor thinks he can work something out with Hornellsville to get get that Jameson thing moved.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, because it does change. You'd have a house up there, half in Hornellsville, half in Hornell. Pat says somehow you
Give me a drawing of how, that
One-
property out
When Scott gets, I will do that. There is part of the Jameson one though that I believe is, I'll talk to Alex all about it. It's not usable. I don't know that that's the one, but what we got from Jameson. was in Hornell.
I just have something on
Yeah.
paper, so when I approach the town,
Better now than.
actually talking about.
That's a good idea.
Somebody like,
Yeah.
That piece right over there.
Sign here. So it's good.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have is when we meet with the governance committee, we're gonna talk about pilots and then we'll bring it to the full board. We're gonna have some criteria for people to get behind on their pilots, what we want to say to them, how much time we want to give them, if you get this far behind.
Existing policy that has any guidelines.
Do you mind if I just jump in for a second? I'd like to attend that governance committee meeting if possible, because coming up on the annual meeting is where you typically review your policies annually. And you guys do have a state policy, some of them that you do have to review annually at the IDA level. So your procurement policy, your real property disposition policy, and your investment policy have to be reviewed annually
We
and
actually,
reapproved.
we do internally, we do review annually, and Sean comes down, we review, they go out, but I think the only thing we can make in policies is the law.
Yeah.
We set policies, we gotta make sure, but Sean is reviewed them, but I agree with you.
Sean and I are going to review them. We've already talked about this, reviewing them more in depthly to make sure we're complying with the law, meeting the needs of the IDA. So definitely I'll come into that governance meeting and we could talk about them. But at the next meeting, the board is going to vote on those 3 policies. We'll circulate them in advance if there's any changes, just to make sure, but it is required for you to do prior to submission of your annual reports. So just a little heads up on that.
I want to meet with the governance committee because
Yeah.
we can sit and talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and it's worked well on different, so.
If governance can meet before the March board meeting, that would be great. And I'll make myself available and I'm sure Sean will.
So but you'll have
We'll have the revised for at least those 3 and then we could come with discussion
I couldn't
points.
do it the same day.
We could do.
Start governance right at 8:00 and then IDA.
Yeah, and that's typically traditionally what we see, exactly.
We just schedule.
You want to schedule a meeting now on that?
Why don't we just do that now? So governance will start, so the next meeting will start with governance at 8. And then how long do you want? In a half hour?
I mean, if governance wants to meet prior to that, to do like the hour-long meeting, governance can also meet right before the meeting if they want to just say, we approve and recommend these policies for adoption to the board is the way it would work, which would take all of 2 minutes.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to start governance, so I'm saying that would require 2 governance meetings. One would be right at 8 a.m. before the next board meeting. One would be sometime in between there with a little bit of a longer time
Yeah.
period. So I think that's probably our best approach. So we're not turning this into a potentially 3-hour meeting. The annual meeting could be a bit luminous to begin with. So if everyone's schedules do line up for a meeting before then, I think that's best. And then governance will meet at 8, probably conclude by 8:02 if I had to guess. And then we could hop right into IDA, IDC.
if we have a governance committee prior to that longer, any board member can come they want.
Yeah, any member of the public can come to. I mean, the governance committee is open, so same way, it would function the same way as the board meeting. You guys are all more than welcome to come.
All subject to open meetings laws.
Exactly.
Okay. That's all I got.
Okay. Let's see, Tuttle and Rockwell facade update. Mike?
Yeah, I have actually, because of the cost of that, it's been difficult, but I am now looking at like a phase where this phase now, this phase next year, this phase, just to,
Spread the cost out.
spread the cost out.
Wouldn't that cost more though? Because whoever you're going to have is
Yeah,
going to
I
have to
don't-
mobilize 3 different times.
I don't know that. I don't know. And that will be something they will tell me.
Because mobilization costs are going to be factored in.
But the one issue we have is you can't spend all your capital. We've agreed to borrow $2.5 million for a local company. That is close. It'll probably go to the bank's loan committee within a week. That will affect our our borrowing capability, because in the end, it's ours and theirs. But it goes against
What's the term for that? How many years?
probably 20. They didn't flinch to 20. Alstom would like 20. It then would be a new lease, substantial amount of lease. There is an admin fee on top of it. So if the bank didn't flinch, which I thought they would, I thought they'd say, no, when I go 20 years, they did not flinch. Doesn't mean they'll approve that. I believe they will approve the loan. I don't think there's an issue. Other than we've got to change the description on some of our accounts because some things are misleading. I've had to answer 100 questions. They're not misleading in the audit. They are misleading how they were labeled on our internal financials. So, and it's nothing more than changing the description so I don't have to, well, why are you in the Chamber of Commerce? Oh, I don't. It's just somebody put on their loan payable change. That's all we got to do is get them descriptions off. I don't think Michelle's doing it. It's not difficult. And it's my fault that I haven't got back to her with wipe this out, but I will. And it isn't a big deal to us other than for this loan because the bank said, well, what's this? They would have never asked if it didn't say Chamber of Commerce or something else. And it should have been just like an overall, this is my loans payable account, but we can fix it. It's not an issue. So we've got to do that. But the questions we've answered to the bank, I think we've got Mark Young's working on it, somebody out of Ohans, and lady, they're doing a great job, but they're telling me they'll get it to the loan committee within a couple of weeks and we'll have an approval. And Lizzie and Sean are already working on the lease agreement with Alstom. And Sean says you got to go through 10 attorneys at Alstom. It doesn't shock me. I've done business with them.
Yeah, so,
But it's not easy.
yeah, we're.
So that lease is going to be for everything
Everything. It's going to be for everything.
down there. We're not
Oh, no,
messing with this up here.
It's going to be for,
Plan for.
as of right now, obviously it's still subject to negotiations. The plan is for it to be for everything, even including the newer project, just subject, obviously you have the conditions of the EDI grant that would be subject. So with a strong provision basically stating that nothing is going to change those provisions and they'll be embedded in the lease. So it'll basically think of it as just being all, because right now I view it as there's 4 outstanding leases between Alstom and the IDA, all 4 of those put in to one. And then within that same document, there's just going to be separate schedules of like, here's the rent payments for this property, here's the EDA obligations for this property.
More of a consolidation.
Yep, exactly. And I think administratively, that's going to make it a lot easier on the staff here. And also it should be easier for Alstom too. So that way they can get everything just into one instead of having these chains of leases that date back to 97, some of them even pre that, and then also just having different schedules for everything, having it all consolidated into one document is our current thing. And then from a compliance standpoint too, I spoke with our compliance manager briefly. It should make it easier for reporting purposes too, putting everything just together.
I believe there is a lease on that now. It's $1 a year lease because they paid for everything. We didn't pay for everything. But I think there is a lease back for one. We've never got $1. I gotta get out. Give them $4.
Think about a new
Have to
bill.
work on that.
I'll give them $4.
$2 also.
Yeah. So
Then the facade
I
job.
want to collect it retroactively too. So 20 years, I want $20.
Yeah.
don't forget about the interest on it too.
Yeah, there you go.
Carrying
It's
costs.
about 12% per year. So you could be looking at
21.
We got we've had more than one of those $1 a year things. I don't think we ever collected that. But that's okay.
I'm not going to opine on that.
I don't want to put down on our businesses for that $1. I know I pay a $2 fee to the bank and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've got a substantial amount. It's, why am I paying you $2? Then I found out it's because they have to send me paper statements. So I got away, but I couldn't understand. it's a pain in the rear just writing it down. So I got away from the $2. So if they get irritated like me, just think how mad they'll get for $1.
Yeah.
But it's good. They're agreeable to it.
Yeah.
Because it's better for them.
They're excited.
It's just that there's a lot of layers of attorneys. Our attorneys have to go through to get this done.
Yeah.
All good people, not an issue, but they're just there and they all look at it and it takes a while.
Yeah. And then
Mike, turning our attention back to the West Street project, where are we in regards to the grant application?
They've got to take it to the county. That's another thing I have to talk to Sean about.
Okay.
It's one of the questions that Steve Terwilliger has. Frankly, the application, we have not started.
okay.
Steve has got to commit or,
Well, Steve, in the meeting we had, he
yeah,
verbally committed.
But-
He wanted
but he's
more
got-
like an outline, but
he's got questions from Sean and I got to get Sean here to answer those
that
questions.
grant, I can't remember off the top of my head what the deadline is, but it's coming in March, I believe.
Well, they have to go to the county but the actual application, I think, is April.
Okay.
They just got to get the legislature to say, yeah, and then let's go with it.
But do we have to have the application ready for the ledge?
I don't, no, we
review
don't,
it?
because
Or is that-
actually, the way I understand it from Jack is to even take the application, the legislature's got to go forward with it. And I will talk to Jack.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that whatever the ledge needs to do their review, I want to make
Yeah.
sure that they have it for this project, that it's on time and complete.
That's all I have.
We do have a couple items in executive session that I'd like to go over.
I have one item for new business.
First,
I attended you want to do that first?
sure, go.
I attended a meeting with the local, the AMVets, VFW, and they're planning on erecting a wall that down at Veterans Park. A decorative wall that sort of, there's nothing down there really that says this is Veterans Park.
Other than the signs.
Yeah, I mean,
There's nothing to really commemorate it.
right. And they want to put up a nice wall with all the branches of service on it. And they're looking for some donations for that. And I didn't know if we might be able to do a 5 or 10. I mean, it's something that's going to probably be in the neighborhood of 15 to 20. They have some money already, but it's something that would be long lasting for the city. And I'm looking to see if we might be able to do something to help them out. It's the AMVets, the VFW, the Legion.
Yeah, it's all three. Heinz Pollinger has been kind of the lead on it. And I've sat in on I don't know, probably 2 or 3 different meetings, and it was more, just kind of tossing around different concepts, and it could be this or it could be that. So the meetings that I've been involved in, we've been trying to narrow the scope. Okay, what type of project are you really looking for? Is it something smaller that we can do in-house with help of our DPW, or is it a larger project that we'll have to go to Parks and Rec and apply for a grant and bid out a project? So that's kind of where we left it off. And the last meeting I had was prior to the holidays, or right around, I think between Thanksgiving and Christmas, somewhere in there. And we're still trying to narrow the scope. I think conceptually we had some of those components that you talked about. It was really, what's the cost of materials, but nothing had been costed out at that point.
I attended the meeting last month, and I pretty much told them, I think you got to break it down into some phases. This phase 1 that they're doing was the wall with the signs for the branches of service, a sidewalk that would sort of lead to into the park, and I don't know what you would call it, like a pavilion type thing with some seats under it. So
There's some discussion about, if it were something like that, we could bring BOCES in and have them help out. And, and they've done pavilion work for us down at the park.
right. So, I mean, it's that, so I guess I think they agreed to was that, this would be the phase one. And again, I think that's the most important piece because it does get that wall up. I think it'll really dress up that end of the park. And, commemorate the different branches.
Yeah, which would be really nice. So we're talking about right off from Park Drive. When you enter the park, there's that strip of like
On the
grass
east side of the
parking
park.
lot in Park Drive. There's
Yeah.
kind of a wide.
Pretty wide, yeah,
long,
piece, yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
long strip. So
This is actually another thing that you gotta get your opinion on how we do it. I would think this is a corporation thing.
Yeah,
I would think so.
depends a little bit more.
So there's a fundraising strategy too that, I kind of indicated that we could put together and, have different levels of sponsorships for, donating to the project. And, I think we just we talked about it a little bit. We were kind of trying to fit everything into the meeting. Let's narrow down the scope of the project. What exactly are you looking for? Okay, what materials are we using? How do we do it? And then we talked about the fundraising a little bit at the back end of it. But I think a lot of local businesses would be really enthusiastic about something like that.
Yeah, I think.
We'll look at that, how we can attack it. And if you need an executive session, just call.
Yeah.
That's that.
But I do have a couple items in executive session that I'd like to discuss. One involves real estate. And
We better go in.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Ed, second by Rick to enter into executive session. All in favor?
Door,
Yeah.
We are back in regular session. We've already gone over new business.
Aaron, you can hit that door.
Is there any old business? Being none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Rick, second by Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes, we are adjourned. Okay, this meeting of the Cornell Industrial Development Corporation is called to order. Again, Chairman Parmalee is not with us today, but we still have a quorum. With that, we have the secretary's report. Is there a motion to approve the secretary's reports?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ed, second by Rick. Any questions on the secretary's reports? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All ayes passed. We also have the treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Motion by Rick, second by John. Any questions or comments on the treasurer's report? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. Are there any committee reports, audits?
Audit, yes. Out of the operating account in January, we paid out $5,710.80.
Thank you. Anything from personnel or governance? I don't believe that there are. Is there a motion to approve the audit committee reports? So moved. Motion by Rick, second by Ed. Any questions on that report? Being none, all in favor? All ayes. Thank you. Executive director's reports. And we have the annual audit, so we covered the annual audit in the prior meeting and we went over it from front to back.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a motion to approve that audit? Motion by Ed, second by John. Any questions or comments on that particular audit? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you. Executive Director, is there anything? Okay. We have no resolutions. Any old business? Any new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I just got it, and I can get it now.
In the nick of time.
What do we, when we're approving audits and things, I want to make sure we're getting the right thing. We've already proved it, you guys are fine, but do we need anything from written other than in the minutes?
I think, no, I don't think we'll need a formal resolution that's drafted to memorialize that. I can confirm with our compliance manager to make sure she wouldn't like anything for sake, but the way that we've been, Aaron and I have talked about, we're memorializing things in the minutes is usually sufficient, but I'll confirm with her just to make sure that we don't need a formal resolution. If we do, obviously, then that's fine. I'll just draft it. We could send it over for signature.
Okay.
We'll just date it the meeting date today. Since it passed, it should be fine.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Ed, second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. We are adjourned. Thank you.